is up, everybody? Welcome to Dharma Time. As always, I'm your host, the Dharma Guy, here, joined with the Dope Doctor. What's up, brother?
What's happening? Trini, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, actually. I'm loving the weather today, bro. Like today, I
I
can
bet you
finally
are.
say,
Bet you
yes,
are.
this is phenomenal weather. My house has been open. I'm letting it all come right on in. I'm enjoying it. It is, it's good stuff. Us polar bears enjoy the cold weather. What can I say?
Yeah, it caught me off guard last night. I go walk the dogs and I was like, "What? What just happened?"
Yeah, I think
It
the
just-
news was reporting it was supposed to be like in the 70s and stuff, or the 80s, and that is not what we got. I'm not complaining.
mm,
I'm just
it
saying
was,
it was contrary to the weather reports. But anyways, I digress. For
it
those of
was
you who don't know,
50
we live in
last.
Florida. Most people
Yeah.
think it should be 80, 90 degrees and scorching hot. I am not of that ilk. And today is like I think the high was like 50 something, and it's windy. It is absolutely phenomenal. I'm very very
But it
happy.
feels good in the sun now. Feels real
Um,
good.
I'm just disappointed in the sense that I know it's going to be short lived. It won't be long before we'll be right back to like record highs and whatnot. So, anyways, I'm gonna enjoy it while I can. This is one of the few times that you'll see me like in my yard, like sitting in my backyard, like hanging out, like just sitting outside, just basking in the cooler weather here. And it's a
uh,
great shirt you got on there, by the way, man. I should get me one of
yeah,
them.
yours too.
Yeah, I took this opportunity to wear sleeves, by the way. So.
I was gonna say, I mean, it must be feeling really good because you have sleeves on
Yeah, well, I was in a tank top, but I put those sleeves on just for this show so I could prove that I do have sleeves. And once this
today.
show's over, I will be right back into a tank top, just so everybody knows.
Did somebody ask if you
No,
have sleeve shirts?
no, but I just like to switch it up every now and then. I like to be unpredictable, you
Oh,
know. So, oh man. Anyways, so thank you everybody for tuning in. I don't know where you're getting this from. I don't know if you're on one of the many podcast platforms. If you're watching us live through Facebook Live, that would be facebook.com slash WPSN99. I don't know if you're watching us on YouTube, which would be youtube.com slash Dharma Time. Who knows? However you're watching it, or listening to it, we appreciate you. Thank you so much. Be sure to send it to your friends, like it, subscribe, that kind of stuff. It really does help us out. The algorithms kind of respond well when they get activity like that. So, and as always, you can follow him on social media at the Dope Doctor. You can follow me at the Dharma Guy. You can follow us at WPS. That's a lot of ats. At WPSN99, or you can check out what we're doing here with the Now Matters More Foundation, and that's at Now Matters More. So, and for those of you who aren't aware, the number behind his head is 833 Now Matters. That's the number that you can call and get a hold of us, and we will help you if you're struggling in the realm of drug and alcohol addiction, need some help, need to know what to do. You can reach out to us, or you can go to nowmattersmore.org and fill out an application there, and we will be in touch. So, now that I got all the housekeeping out of the way, so today's topic, man, I'm kind of excited, like low key excited about today's show because I really think this could go some places, right? And as
right.
always, especially with Dharma Time, we try to come up with topics that are relatively universal that people are dealing with, on all different walks of life and whatnot. With Dharma Time, we have a little bit more flexibility than some of the other shows because spirituality is such a big thing. Um, so sometimes I get really, really excited about some of the topics we have on here, only because I think when people get a chance to see it, if they do, if all you guys share it and tell people about it, I think they get value from it. I really do, because I think that you and I say some things or bring a perspective that sometimes people just don't get in their lives, right? We have this
But
tendency in our lives to surround ourselves with, for lack of a better word, yes men, right? We have like what in the news media you hear it called echo chambers, right? And essentially we surround ourselves with like-minded people. If you think the way I think and you like the same things that I like and you dislike the same things that I like, we can be friends. And what that means though is whenever something happens or out there in the world, we're going to kind of agree and then we're just going to reinforce each other's opinions and we're not really going to hear another perspective. So we start to kind of get to this concept of, well, I must be right and everybody else must be wrong because everybody I know agrees with me. And
right.
so we get this false sense of like superiority almost. Like it's we got this ivory tower that we're living in, and all these other heathens are just all wrong, right? Um, and that coincides with today's show a little bit in the sense of consequences, right? So the way I see that played out in consequences is like we're all aware Consequences exist. We all look forward to and we're grateful for the positive consequences. But the negative consequences, the ones that we're not excited about, we typically try to explain away, right? We typically try to justify them somehow, some way. We come up with all the different circumstances to lessen the blow, if you will, of hey, this negative consequence took place that I'm not really fond of. And then if we are in that echo chamber, we are surrounded by a bunch of yes men, they'll just reinforce that. They'll just be like, oh yeah, it's okay because this, and this. If we don't surround ourselves with at least a few people who are going to hold us to the fire a little bit and say, well, you kind of deserved it, didn't you? I mean, you made a bad decision. Like you know, I'm not saying anybody deserves poor things happening to them, but if I'm speeding, I'm kind of asking for a speeding ticket, right? Like, I could come up with an excuse of like, hey, I was late for this and I was doing this or what. No, I got caught. Like I was doing something knowingly that I shouldn't do. I was making a bad decision. I got caught. I can't get mad and frustrated about what I can, but it's illogical, right? Like, so
Right.
if I'm surrounded by a bunch of friends who are all like, yeah, that cop was an asshole. Like, aren't there better things to be doing? Like, he should be out fighting. I'm gonna get in this mentality of somehow I'm the victim when I chose to
Yeah.
break a law, right? And that's kind of what I mean by surrounding ourselves with those people, right? So consequences, that's what I want to talk about today, because I think that too many of us do surround ourselves with yes men to where we don't necessarily hear the reality sometimes of our decision making or of our thought process. And I wanted to talk about that today. So are you
Guess
fired up
not.
for that?
Not.
Are you ready?
I don't know about fired up, but it's not only that we have yes men, but it's also the fact that we're just afraid to hurt each other's feelings, man. So
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
and so you remember Trinity when you were a younger man, which is probably like
A week
50
ago.
years ago, a week ago when you were younger, and people would tell you that be careful of picking a certain occupation because that's a dead end job.
Sure.
That's an example of being warned that you're heading into a maze, and your life is like a maze a lot of times. So if you go
Sure.
down the wrong path, and no matter how long that path is, and you think, oh, this is going to go somewhere, but then there's a dead end at the end.
Yeah.
You have to turn around and come all the way back. That is our existence, right? There's a lot of
Yeah.
times where we head down the wrong path. We know where we want to get to, but you're trying to navigate it, right? You're always
Yeah.
taking lefts and rights, and it's not always going to go as smoothly. But there's little hints along the way, like when you're playing the game of life, and it says, "Do you want to go the education route, or do you want to go the straight to a job route?" You know what I mean? You ever
Right.
play the game of life? Yeah, it's a pretty
I
cool
think
game.
so, probably.
Yeah, you end up getting all these kids that you don't want in the car, but the more kids you have, the more money you make, kind of thing. But the point is that we all go through this, but when we have conversations about being in one of these dead end jobs, we want a bailout of some sort. In other words, well, now I think that occupation should pay more. Well, the problem with your occupation paying more is that it costs the rest of us for you to get paid more. Now, all of us want more money. All of us want to get paid
Of
more money
course.
for what we do. That's not a unique situation. So the person making $7 an hour wants $9 an hour. The person 9 wants 12. The person 12 wants 15. On and on and on. It doesn't change. And I use
Sure.
small numbers, and I know they're not reality. I just use small numbers. But the point is that everybody feels that their value requires more. And then once
Sure.
you get that more, then you develop a lifestyle to meet that number, and then you want more from that because now that's not enough.
Sure.
It's just the nature of being human. But what we don't really, I guess, grasp entirely is that costs everybody else money. So nobody's really happy with us making more because that makes us cost money. So like physicians are typically rich people in our country, right?
Affluent. I'll
So
say
when we
that. Yeah.
talk, yeah, all right. So when we talk about like healthcare for all, they're probably not all for it because then at that point, then they're not going to get as paid as much, right? But why
Potentially.
should they
Yeah.
be for it? Why should they be for it? Because it's like, wait a minute, I worked all these years to be a very valuable service in society, but not in my heart, not only in my heart, but also financially. But if it was the same number for everybody, and it was like a Medicaid rate, then that person's not going to have as much money. So of course they're not going to be for
Sure.
that. That's like saying free legal services for all. There should always be free legal services at all. because we should always have right to representation. We should always have the right to be defended by the most brilliant, intelligent minds available. Well, then the really great attorneys are like, whoa, 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 wait a minute. No, you can have a public defender over there, but I'm special. I deserve, you know, blah, blah,
Sure.
and on and on and on and on. And so the point is that those are things that we constantly have in front of us. But the real dead end jobs, you knew it from the start. And if you ended up in a dead end situation, you can either turn around and go back, which may cost you some additional time or money or sacrifice, but we all can't bail you out of that situation. And that's the part where when you say consequences, the first thing that I think about, Trinity,
Right.
is that wherever I'm at, if I'm frustrated with something, this is the consequences of all the decisions that I made, whether they were a decision yesterday or a decision I made 1 year ago or 20
Sure.
years ago. But somewhere down the line, I chose this path that I'm on, and I have to take responsibility for that. And playing victim is not going to help the situation ever.
Well, and that right there is where that's where my mind went, right, when I first started thinking of the topic, was all encompassing. You know, everything you just talked about as far as the job, career, things of that nature, and being bailed out, whatnot. Um, but I was also thinking just on a bigger level, just in general.
Yeah.
We all kind of walk through life, and life is just literally like a bunch of micro decisions, right? I
Right.
decide what time my alarm's going to go off, if it does at all. And if it does, I decide I'm not going to hit snooze. I decide I'm going to get out of bed. I decide what I'm going to have to eat. You know, it's just a bunch of micro decisions. And some of
Right.
those decisions are fantastic, and they have some great consequences to them. You know, the
Yeah.
consequence, if you have a job, right? The consequence of getting out of bed on time and getting ready and going to work is you have a job, and that job gives
Right.
you money, and you can provide. You know, that's a good consequence, right? You know, but the bad consequence of that job, for instance, would be, hey, I can't go hang out with my friends right now, right? That's just a consequence of having this job, is I'm not able to go and do whatever with my friends. Now, you know, we kind of all understand that, I think, on a fundamental level.
Right.
But what I see a lot from everybody, and it's not an age thing, because I see it from my kids, and I see it from adults. We have this weird like knack, if you will, that this refusal to accept that maybe, just maybe, my decisions led to this. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, we want to create a scenario where somehow we're the victim in this. Like, somehow this happened to me, and it's not fair. And we start to like get everybody on board, you know. And one thing, you can be right or you can be happy, right?
Yeah.
And depending on who you're around, you can have quite a few people all agree with you. Yeah, you're right. And then you lose sight of, and what that does though is it doesn't teach you anything. It doesn't improve your ability to make better decisions. And so what you find is you keep getting into these situations where you're a victim of your circumstances.
Right.
You know, as opposed to, gosh, you know, I made some really poor decisions, right? Like, I didn't value things correctly, and I made some poor decisions. And it's frustrating to see that, because I think that it has a lot of unintended consequences, right?
Right.
Because we're going to go big philosophical here today on today's
Right.
show, I believe. So I was talking to my mother actually about this earlier. We were talking about more specifically. We were talking about, you know, relationships and marriage, and kind of marketability, if you will, as far as who we are and who wants us, that kind of stuff. But then that also led into like raising kids. And the thing that I've noticed, that as adults, our inability to properly hold ourselves and others accountable for our decisions, what that's doing is it's teaching our kids to not have a balance of hope and reality, right? So we don't have it, and then we're passing on that same, you know, myth to our children, right? Because we've all heard the myth: you could be anything you want to be. Well, that's not
Right.
necessarily true, right? And it sounds like an asshole thing to say, but not everybody's going to be Beyonce. Not everybody's going to be, you know, Donald Trump. Not everybody's going to be, you know, Barack Obama. Not everybody's going to be that doctor that you. Not everybody is playing with the same decks. Not everybody has the same skills and abilities. But we've gotten to the point where, like you said, we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, so we encourage everybody to follow their dreams. And I'm not saying people shouldn't follow their dreams, but
Mm-hmm.
you and I say this so many times that I'm sure people know exactly what I'm about to say, and that is, not everybody is the Michael Jordan of X. You know,
Right.
whatever that is. We get we all have this so much hope, and I think hope is an amazing thing. I think hope is awesome, but
Right.
I think we need to do a better job, you know, balancing that hope with some reality, right?
Right.
Like, somebody in my life was doing musical stuff, right? They were amazing at it. They were really, really good at their chosen instrument, and just a natural talent, man. This person just picked it up and was just wow, really talented stuff. But I remember telling this person, hey, you're young and it's awesome that you want to do this, and I encourage you to perfect that skill. I encourage you to follow it. But I also encourage you to kind of get a backup plan, right? I encourage you to also develop other skills in your life because no matter how good you are, the reality is there's only but so many people who make it in that industry. There's a lot of good people who are great at music, who are sitting at home or working dead end jobs, as you said, or unemployed or what have you. Not everybody makes it to MTV. Not everybody makes it to the radio. And and so I was chastised by saying, "Hey, follow your dreams, but have a backup plan." Because I was chastised as if I wasn't believing in these people. No, I believe
Right.
in you, but I also believe in reality, right? And that's the thing I think that we got to do a better job for ourselves in order to teach our children that, right? I don't want to, once again, I don't want to come off like I'm trashing anybody's dreams because I think we
Right.
should have hope. I think we should have dreams. But not everybody's going to be a millionaire. Not everybody's going to be an NBA star. Not everybody's going to be an NFL star. Not everybody's going to be whatever it is. There's going to be janitors in the world. There's going to be plumbers in the world. There's going to be people who work at McDonald's. Like those people are going to exist. And so we have to understand the idea of accountability, right? So I know they're two separate things, but they're the same thing, right? They're related. And what I mean by
Hmm.
that is you get that food, huh? I like it.
You're
So you didn't
talk.
have
You're talking. My
you didn't
wife
have to
brought
wait
in
2 hours.
breakfast.
No, that's awesome. You didn't have to
She
wait two
brought
hours.
up
I'm
in.
glad I could help feed you. So,
You go
uh,
ahead and keep talking.
sure, right? So my point is, as far as consequences, right? I have visible tattoos, and I
Hmm.
decided a long time ago that I was not going to take the traditional route of going and being a W-2 employee and just wait for a paycheck every 2 weeks and call it a day at a traditional like office type job. I made that decision a long time ago. That was not going to be my life, and so it didn't bother me to get visible tattoos. Even though everybody around me said, "Hey, you're young, you shouldn't do that," whatever. I just knew, and I was willing to deal with those consequences. Now, the positive consequences are I was able to express myself freely. I was able to get the tattoos I wanted. There was certain positive female responses to it. Little kids thought I was cool. When I went to go mentor, I immediately had like a cool look. So it definitely came with its pluses. It had some great consequences,
Yeah.
but it also had some negative consequences. There's certain people that won't trust me. There's certain people that will clutch their purses. There's certain places that would never hire me. And that's okay. It's okay because I've accepted it, and that's what I'm trying to get at. Is I understood when I made that decision that there's going to be consequences, and if life gets rough because I chose the harder path, when it gets hard, I can't then sit back and complain and whine and say, well, it's not fair. Who are they to not hire me? Like I could do the job. It doesn't matter. They don't care about who I am. They don't care about my life story. They don't care how it affects me. What they care about is these are our standards. You're not qualified for this job because part of the qualification is no visible tattoos. Period. And so that's an example of I have to accept those consequences, and I do. I freely do. But I meet so many people who don't. I meet so many people who will like I know I'm gonna piss some people off here, but on my feed, right, I see so many women complaining that men are sending them, pictures of their genitalia or sending them, slide into their DMs with really inappropriate messages and things of that nature. There's a certain baseline that's always going to happen, right? It's just that's how we are as human beings. People do stupid things. However, you don't help that situation when every other post is your cleavage, your butt cheeks hanging out, you're having like your own little semi-nude photo shoot for the whole world to see. You're not presenting yourself as an individual that's unacceptable behavior to do towards, right? And they don't want to hear that. They get upset. Like, no, I should be able to. That's what I'm talking about. Is in life we all have to stop this idea that our behaviors have no consequences that we're not going to like.
Right.
If you go to school or if you're younger and you have a lot of unprotected sex and you have kids or you get an STD, that's your fault. It's not your job's fault. It's not your neighbor's fault. You made poor decisions, And those poor decisions came with some consequences to them. You didn't get lucky. Maybe your neighbor did the same thing and they're making six figures and having an amazing life. And it didn't happen to you. And it's not because they're better or worse. It's just the luck of the draw. You both made poor decisions. It just so happened that yours had more negative consequences. And that's okay. You make better decisions moving forward and you work with what you got and you build or do whatever you got to do. But this victim mentality of everything's happening to me, you got to stand up and take some accountability. All right, and I'm talking to everybody in every facet of life. We have to start
Right.
taking accountability for our actions. And,
Right.
our actions are going to have some good consequences, and I don't think any of us have a problem taking those. But our actions sometimes have negative consequences. And when you choose the behavior, you choose the consequence. I think you're done eating now, so go ahead.
Well,
I,
I'm not, but I figured I'd have to pause for a little bit. I'm
yeah,
like, I
I
wouldn't
kept
want
it
to be
going as
watching
long as I
somebody.
could.
Well, I wouldn't want to be watching someone even. I'm sorry, people, man, but it's like, come on now. I'm starving, and Dana made some. I could smell the maple
So now
sausages
you're
and
making
the
me hungry,
manna
man.
pancakes, and it's like, damn, woman. I mean,
I just had a
that's
bologna
good.
sandwich, man. So
And she loves me so. I love bologna sandwiches.
I told you I was gonna
Fried
get one.
bologna. I love fried bologna.
I told
But
you I was gonna
anyway,
get one.
so I wanna go back to what you said about the plan B, no plan B or
Yeah,
having a plan B, because I'm a big believer that you know you shouldn't have a plan B, and I'll tell you why. Because and what I'm talking about when I say don't have a plan B with art is because if you truly want to be an artist, then saying I want to be a millionaire or a rock star or gold records, like that's different.
that's
That's
what
a
I'm talking
different
about.
response. If you want to be an artist
Yeah,
and
that's
get paid to
obtainable.
play drums or play guitar or to sing, you don't have a plan B.
Yeah, that's
But
obtainable.
then but then be okay. Yeah, because there's people that sing for a living all over the place. Now they might not make any money. They may not live the way you want to live in the future, but they wanted to do music for the rest of their life, and good for you. That's what you should do.
Sure,
If you
I agree.
truly feel like you're an artist and that's what you want to do the rest of your life, do it. Don't study, don't go to college, don't do anything. Go perfect your craft, but know that you may be broke, but that's cool. At least you're doing what you want to do, man. You're
I
singing all
agree.
day, every day. Same thing with playing basketball, same thing with playing football. If that's what you want to do, then put everything into it. But then don't complain later about money because that wasn't your focus. That's not what you wanted.
Agreed.
You have to make a decision. What is it more important? Do I want to raise a family? Do I want money? Do I want a certain occupation? Or do I want all of it? Well, wait a minute. All of it has a lot of luck to do, like what Trinity's talking about. All of it has a lot of luck to do. I joke about it with my kids because, when we talk, like they're in college, right? So in college, they like to look up, all right, this degree, you can leave college. The average income of a person with this
Yeah.
degree is blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, I guess. I said, but you're looking at a guy where I'm nowhere near the average income of what it says my degree is supposed to be. I excelled at. And so yes, it could be that, but it could be more. But it could be less.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So luck has a lot to do with it. Hard
Yeah.
work has a lot to do with it. Who you know has a lot to do with it. So all those other factors you have to pay attention to. So so getting back to consequences. Look, there is a consequence for feeling, and I want to get back to the victim part as well, because I think that's really at the crux of not accepting a consequence when you feel like a
Yeah.
victim, right?
Yep.
I want to take this opportunity to thank my father because my father got drafted out of Puerto Rico at 20 something years old, not 18, not right out of high school, while in college.
Wow.
So that didn't happen in the United States, but that did happen in the part of the United States which is called Puerto Rico. So for those of you who don't know, that did happen there. So he was drafted from Puerto Rico, didn't speak English very well at all, hardly could understand, learned English in Vietnam, really. But in the early years of being in the military, he wasn't treated very well. But these stories of how he was treated, because he came into the army when the integration of the Puerto Rican soldier just happened. Like right
Yep.
before him in the Korean War, or the Korean conflict, it was separated. The Puerto Ricans were a separate unit. When my dad came in, it was a unified unit. So he suffered a lot of issues due to that. I'm very glad my dad never shared that with me because my dad, when I would be in my victim role mentality as a young man, and I wanted to blame it because I'm Mexican, Puerto Rican, I'm Latino. This is the reason I'm being treated like this, or because I'm short, I'm this, I'm that, whatever it was
Right.
happening. My dad would say, "You're not a victim to anything." That's untrue, Louis. You just gotta move forward. You just gotta get with different people. You just gotta stick your head straight. Just do the right thing. And he was always focused. He
Right.
always just told me to stay focused. Now I didn't really like listening to him at the time because that's not what I wanted to hear.
Of course, of course.
You know what I'm saying? But I respected it and I remembered it. But the point is that I didn't get raised with a victim mentality, and so when the age came of maturity, I didn't struggle with that victimization anymore because when I matured, that part of it was not fertilized by my parents. It wasn't like ingrained in my head from my parents. It was only ingrained in my head from my own insecurities, my own fears, my own bullshit, right?
Yep. Yep.
Or societal bullshit, which society has a lot of bullshit. So I'm very grateful to that because right now there's a lot of parents out there that, especially in today's world, in the last year, the last 4 years, you may not know it, but you've been telling your kids a lot of things about the way the world is. And it's your perspective from your age, from your shit. And you got shit. You're an adult with a lot of shit. A lot of us are.
Yeah.
But when you give your kids your shit, you got to think, are you really educating them for their good? Or are you implanting a victim mentality that is going to make it harder for them to accept their consequences for what they did?
Yep.
Responsibility for what they did. Dude, in school, I never had to accept responsibility for some of the things that I did at school because my mother always defended me at school. So
Sure.
the school never got the Louis that could have been at school. Never got it because I didn't have to be. At home, however, I took every consequence, like probably you did, right? Like,
Yep.
mother said, dad said, and you did
Yep.
it. I bring all of that up because if you were out there and you think you were a victim to anything, whether it be racial inequality, whether it be male, female, whether it be bullying, and I'm not saying all this stuff doesn't have merit. I'm just saying that everybody has that. Everybody has that. Every culture has been attacked by another. Every race has been attacked by another. Every religion has been attacked by another. Every size of person, even Trinity has gotten shit for being as big as he is.
Sure.
And he's a beast, So no matter what your situation is, there's people that are talking smack about that. And if you are a person that wasn't taught how to deal with people talking smack about you, you're going to forever be accusatory. You're forever going to feel like a victim, and you're forever going to give yourself a lot of pain and anguish instead of just simply going a different direction, or fighting your own way to get through those barricades, or letting them know who you are. I just think there's a lot of situations like that in today's world, we're really not teaching kids how to deal with
No.
adversity. We're teaching them that the world has to change for them, and that's the way it
Yeah.
should be.
And that lends itself to not understanding consequences. Not
Mm-hmm.
not owning the negative ones, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I too, I got to take this moment, and I'm sure she's watching. I got to take this moment to thank my mother as well. My mother instilled in me that same thing because I went through my little moments, right? Like, I went through my moments of wanting to be a victim. How oh, woe is me. I had a crappy father, and I don't have any opportunities. And, my mom didn't make a
Yep.
whole ton of money, and so it's nothing's ever gonna go my way, and all this other stuff. And my mom basically just told me to shut up, right? Like my mom just, I think because she went through a lot in her own life and she overcame it,
Yep.
the idea of not overcoming something was just never really an option for her. And so she didn't make it an option for me. She would say to me oftentimes, basically, suck it up, buttercup. That's the hand you were dealt. Do something with it. You're going to sit
Yep.
around and complain and whine about it, or you're going to do something about it.
Man.
So I was raised with this mentality of, all right, well, I'm going to go do something about it. And that's why, coming from the background that I came from, dude, at 17, I was, number two in charge of the Chamber of Commerce in Deltona. I bought a house at 20, right? Like, none of
Yep.
those things were supposed to happen if you look at my statistics of when I was younger, right? And that was all because she taught me the consequences. She taught me, look, good things are going to happen, bad things are going to happen. Figure out what role you played, and get better. And
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think there's enough of that these days. I think we are coddling our kids. I think we're not holding each other accountable, right? We want to come up with all these excuses. Like, here's an example, right? I'll give my own story so I don't piss anybody off. Um,
Mm.
June 25th, 1999. I had a car. I had a '95 Integra, right? It was my first car. I love that car. I put a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort into it. But I was an idiot. I drove it fast. I did stupid shit with it. So one time I was driving, and I went into a lane to pass somebody. When I came back in, somebody was coming in the same lane. I hit the brakes, locked up, slid, hit the curb. It flew up, flipped a bunch of times in the air, hit a tree, and came down. It's a horrible accident, right? But at that point, I was out of the house. Like I wasn't living with anybody. I had roommates and stuff, right? And so I had no way to get to and from work. My leg was messed up a little bit. It was a crappy moment in my life, right? I had this car. I just lost everything. I had no vehicle, no nothing. I wasn't in school or anything, and I had rent I had to pay and stuff, and I had jobs I had to get to and whatnot. So I had this like woe is me moment for just a half a second, but because my
Yep.
mom instilled in me, the idea of pushing through stuff and accepting my consequences, I couldn't get mad at anybody else. It was my consequences. I was driving erratically. I was driving like an idiot.
Right.
It happened.
Right.
Now what? And so I ended up, and here's my here's my get off my lawn story. Um,
You know.
I got up. I would wake up in the morning time. I would walk with a busted leg out, out of wrecking a car. I would walk 2 miles to catch the public bus, the public transit system. I walked 2 miles, got on the bus, and I don't know if you guys know about Orlando public transit, but it takes forever. Like it literally takes like a 10-minute drive in a car is like a 45 minute to an hour drive on a bus because it stops all the time. It's ridiculous. So I would have to leave like way, way early just to get to my job downtown. And then when I was done with my job downtown, I would have to immediately run downstairs in the hopes of catching the bus to go back to the mall where my second job was. Sometimes I didn't catch that bus, so I had to walk or take a cab, do something to get down to my second job. So my
Jesus.
point is, yeah, my point is instead of sitting back and crying and whining and getting a bunch of people to agree with me that it's a crappy situation, I overcame it. I realized that those are consequences of my decisions. Things happen. It is what it is. I got to overcome it. But I guess that's why I see it so much, and it rubs me the wrong way when I see so many people in today's world having consequences that we'll call negative for the purposes of this discussion, instead of saying, you know what, this happened because of the decision I made. I need to
Right.
make better decisions.
Right.
No big deal. No. They say, well, what would you expect? I had this, and they go through this whole laundry list of all the circumstances and excuses and why they didn't overcome that, as opposed to
Right.
just saying, you know what, like you said, everybody has it. I've never met anybody who didn't have some sort of a story to tell. And we all have figured out a way of overcoming it for the most part. And so I'm trying to encourage in this broadcast here, I'm trying to encourage each and every single one of you who are listening to this right now. You have a story. Congratulations. I'm proud of you. We all do. Welcome to the club. But what are you going to do with that story? Are you going to sit back and get a whole bunch of people on your side to all agree with you that the reason why you're no longer mobile in life, your upward mobility stopped, is because of the world hates you, because of X, Y, and Z, because you're black, because you're white, because you're male, because you're female. Oh, it's just hard. I can't do it. I'm gonna just, well, okay, great. Or maybe just maybe, it's because when you were younger, you didn't take things seriously as you should. You made some poor decisions. Maybe you didn't get the A's that your parents told you to get. Maybe you decided to dabble in drugs more than you should. Maybe you tried to, you started being sexually active earlier than you probably should have. Who knows? And maybe that led to some consequences that kind of set you back a little bit. Those were your decisions. You didn't have to do that. Millions of people all across the world were in a similar circumstance who didn't make those decisions. And so instead of blaming them for their success, look at yourself and say, you know what? What could I have done differently? Own
Right.
your mistakes. Own it. You know what? Yeah, I made some decisions I probably shouldn't have. I did. Like I got involved in some illegal activity when I was early. When I was in school, I was that kid with the 4.0 and stuff. I never pursued that. I had a degree or I had a college scholarship that I let falter. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I should have followed that up a little bit. Maybe I should have tried harder in school. Who knows? I'm happy with my life where I'm at right now, and I'm happy with the environment. But I'm not going to pretend like I made nothing but good decisions my whole life because I didn't. I made some poor decisions, and those had some negative consequences. I've had to overcome those, but those were my doing. It wasn't the world's fault. And that's what I want to see more people do. Is I want to see more people own your shit. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Own it.
Yeah.
It's okay if you make bad decisions. We all do.
Yeah.
What's not okay is to play victim and act like you did nothing wrong, like you were perfect, and then explain away your poor decision. If
Right.
I'm late for something, and I start to speed, and we go back to my original point. because I see this is an easy example because I see it all the time. I've seen people get speeding tickets and get angry at the cop, which to me is the dumbest thing, right? Like viscerally, it feels good, of course, because this asshole's giving you a ticket, right? But if we really look at it, he's not an asshole. He's just a regular dude doing what he's getting paid to do. His job is to enforce laws. It's your job to follow them. You chose not to follow it. You chose to look at the speed limit and say, my wants and my needs are more important than that law right there, and I'm going to do what I want. Okay, fine, go for it. You have that right. But what's going to end up happening is if you get caught, then you're going to have to pay the ticket. That's the consequences of your decision. It's not a victim. He's not an asshole. He didn't do anything. No, it was you. You chose to do that. And our lives are filled with those kinds of decisions. And many of them work out just fine, but there's also many that don't work out fine. And that's why I start to see people blame other people. And we do it in our professional relationships. We do it in our friendships. We do it with our spouses. We do it with our kids. We do it with our politics. We always want to look at what everybody else did, but we don't want to stop to look at what we did to contribute to it. And that's got to stop. Go for it,
You
man.
you made me think of that old Kenny Rogers song. You got to know when to hold 'em, know when to
Yeah.
hold 'em.
Is that because of
You
my
know,
gray beard?
gambler. No, no, I thought about it because, uh, there was, when you were talking about doing negative things and criminal things, and I'm thinking, well, there was a day where I remember walking away from that table, and being like, okay, I'm still a winner here. I still got chips in my pocket. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I still got money on the table, so I'm gonna leave while I still have money on the table. And I walked
Yeah.
away from that, and I remember, for quite a long time, feeling like I should go back to it, or why did I leave that behind? What coulda, shoulda, woulda, or
Sure.
especially when I went through rougher times early on, saying, "Damn, man, if I had just one of those gigs right now, or just one of those things that I was doing right now, what a different life it would be." And so I remember those little moments of not
Sure.
accepting my current situation and focusing on that. And that's really hard, and I get it. So a lot of you are just, you have to admit to yourself that you tend to regret a lot, and regret is not really going to help your situation too much. It's
Right.
going to allow you to get in your feels a little bit and mope around, and that's all right. There's time for that. We all do it.
Sure.
We're
Of
human. We
course.
we, we regret things. We feel horrible about things. And like this topic today, sometimes we feel like a victim and we want to bitch and moan about it and get around people that accept us bitching and moaning about it. But there has to get a point where you got to brush yourself off, and then now
Yeah.
what? So now what? What's next? Are you gonna stay in that situation, or what? So here's the thing I was thinking, going back to because I can't help but think again of how we were raised. Like you went back to how you were raised, I went back to
Yeah.
how I was raised.
Of course.
But go further than that. I mean, do you ever watch those World War II old Nazi things on TV? You ever watch that stuff? You ever watch those old?
I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, man. When I watch that stuff, and I see the devastation of Europe, right? And they do those flyovers like of Paris, or they do those flyovers over Italy, over Germany, over France, and you're like, oh my God, it's devastating.
Yeah.
Poland, devastating. All these massive, huge cities, and all the rubble. I mean, the entire
Yeah.
city's destroyed, and like there's nobody in it because it got bombed, right? So,
Right.
so, and I think about everybody just left, and when you look at the lines of people and nobody was spared, by the way. Nobody was spared. Everybody suffered. All of them suffered. Those that did well while the conflict was in place got horribly treated after the conflict was over. Like, I mean, so if you're thinking, well, it went well with the Germans, nah, the Germans got raped and attacked and
Yeah.
displaced afterwards. They all got
Sure.
accused of being Nazis, right? But you watch this stuff and you go, man, you know, I'm so glad to not live during those times. I'm so glad
Yeah.
where I don't fear a bomb, hailing down on Orlando and New Smyrna Beach, all this. You know what I mean? I feel pretty comfortable that we may have isolated terrorist attacks, but I don't fear it turning into what happened to Europe back in the World War,
Sure.
right?
Or
Or
even the
one of the
Middle East
world
right now.
wars. So it also makes me think that, man, we've gotten so accustomed to just playing victim to heartache and pain that we also lost what they did. And I'm going to get into it. So when
Sure.
they felt a lot of pain and attack, they migrated. all of our ancestors have migrated. Nobody here does 23andMe and you came from here. And if you're
Yeah,
Native American, you didn't either. Native Americans aren't from here. So I don't want to hear it from you either, Mr. Navajo, because nobody is from Florida. Nobody is from Texas. According to all science, we all came from Africa, or at least the
yeah,
continent of Africa,
sure.
correct? All right.
Yeah,
So there's no such thing as a Native American, despite what the lies that we get told. But what I'm saying is, so there's people that migrate. Why do they migrate? They migrate for opportunity of some sort, whether it be money, shelter, pain, where they're at. Always seeking, right? And we lost a lot of that migration, Trinity. I think there's generations of poverty and pain that have just sat and just been like, all right, well, I'm just waiting for the opportunity to come. You can migrate, right? You know that
yeah,
we've always migrated. Culturally, we've all done it. We all come from ancestors who said, you know what? I'm not staying here. So let's start investigating which country best suits my talents, my needs, my desires. Well, Trinity, we're not stuck here. We're not in a communist society, but I think people act like they're in a communist society where we can't leave the boundaries of Alabama or the boundaries of Texas or you can leave New Smyrna Beach. Like Trinity, you can leave Orlando. If
yeah,
you didn't like it here, you can go anywhere you want to be that accepts you as an American citizen.
yeah,
Now, if you say, well, I don't have the money to move or I have family here, yes, so do they. You know what I mean? Next
yep.
time you go to one of these Mexican or Chinese restaurants where the people are first generation from there, ask them who they left behind. They
Yeah,
left somebody behind too, for opportunity, for safety, for freedom, for something. Look, if you're frustrated, you're not a victim to have to stay anywhere. And I'm not saying that as a racist, so don't even play that shit with me. I'm saying it as a reality that if you are here and you don't like it here, like Trinity hates Florida for the heat,
I do.
go. He
I just
can
talked about
leave,
it. Yeah,
but he's stuck by children and mother, so he ain't going nowhere, right? But the
yeah,
point
for
is that
now.
we all have that freedom to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the
Before I touch on any more points, Simon put a comment. I'm gonna put it up on the
what do you
page
say?
here. It says, "It sure can take energy and time, maybe a catalyst and even support slash aid to process through those stories, to lift your head above the daily circumstance, see wood for the trees, and see how you are involved in the unfolding of events." And he followed that up with, "It took me until my mid to late 30s to really start unpacking." And that to me is the responsible thing to do, and that's what I'm trying to get people to do, is to start
Yep.
unpacking to see how you contributed to the unfolding of events. And in spirituality, we call it dependent origination, right? Nothing just is. Everything started as a series of consequences to actions or events, right? And so we have to ask ourselves, if you're not cool with your current circumstance, it didn't happen to you. You were a willing participant. Somewhere along the line, you made a decision to put you in the path of whatever that consequence was. And if it sucks, like he said, if it sucks, then change it. But don't sit around and act like you don't have a choice or act like it happened to you. No, you were a willing participant. And that's what I try to teach my children, right? My daughter has a friend. Well, I gotta be careful because they listen to this. I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad or call them out. Um, let's just say that there are individuals that I have the benefit of speaking to, right? That are younger, my daughter's age, and they're 16. They're trying to figure out what they want to do in life and how they're going to pursue things. And they come to me a lot to get advice and to get just tips on how to kind of proceed through life, right? They like the way I put some things. Maybe I'm easier to talk to than their own parents. Who knows? And so they'll talk to me about things, and I always try to stress to them the consequences of their actions. Right? I'm really in my household. Apparently, I'm famous this because my daughter says it back to me all the time now. So obviously she's listening. What I say to them all the time, right? Because we all do this. We all focus on the outlier, right? Like, well, such and such did this. We focus on like the absolute furthest part of the outlier. Like the one or two people. We don't say smoking kills, right? We talk about our grandmother who smoked every day for 90 years and she lived to 95. Okay, yeah. The reason why you know that story is because it's not the norm. That's why you know that story. That's why it's stuck out in your head. Because the other 90% got lung cancer, right? Like it's just simple cause and
That's funny.
effect. But we don't do that,
Yeah.
right? And so I try to talk to these kids, and I try to get them to think. And the phrase that I'm saying all the time is, I'm not concerning myself with the 1,000 times that it goes right. I'm worried about the one time that it goes wrong. And is it worth it,
Right.
right? So as an example of my kids, and I don't know if yours did this or not, but my kids were always fighting to ride in the front seat. Skylar did it. Destiny Trinity do it all the time, right? And I don't let them ride in the front seat. Well, Skylar I do now, but I didn't let them ride in the front seat for many years until they were legally allowed to, right? There's certain requirements to ride in the front seat. You have to be a certain height, certain weight, things of that nature. And the reason why is because when the airbag deploys, if an accident happens, if you're not physically, if your body isn't adequately fulfilled or whatever to go through that impact, it could really, really hurt you. So it's in other words, that thing, that life-saving device could actually take your life or hurt you because it wasn't designed for somebody of your size or weight or whatever, right? And that's why they have these rules. But it started with Skylar. She was constantly, well, I want to do it, and she would mention all these friends that did it and everything else. And so I finally sat her down one day. I was like, look, I'm not saying that something bad is going to happen tomorrow, right? But let me walk you through a scenario. Let's say I decide to give in, and I put you there knowing that you're not physically able to withstand that. Because there's literal laws that are written that tell me don't do this, this could happen. And I just decide not to do that and put you in the front seat. We're driving, let's say we want to go get something to eat. We're driving to fast food. Somebody pulls out in front of me, and I don't see him in time, and I crash into him, and the thing goes off, and you don't die, but you're disfigured for the rest of your life. Some horrible disfigurement happens, and now you are not this pretty young little girl anymore. You have this major disfigurement that's going to affect you for the rest of your life. What what were we doing? We were going to get food, right? Was it like the most amazing food that you'll be able to tell and write stories about for the rest of your life? Was it this once in a lifetime opportunity? No, it was like Burger King, right? It was a Whopper that you can get anytime you want. Okay, was the seat cushion like this amazing thing that was just like life changing and life altering that you're gonna write story? No, it's just a regular car that would. So my point was, you took that risk and you decided to do that, and the consequences, the negative consequences, are you're disfigured for the rest of your life. That's a pretty hefty price to pay. What was the benefit? Like, what were you doing it for? And it wasn't worth it. And so that's what I would explain. I was like, look, I don't mind taking risks, and I don't mind making some bad decisions every now and then. As long as I calculate it and I kind of figure out what's worth and what's not worth it. And so, because if I were to do that and she were to get disfigured, I would feel like shit for the rest of my life, knowing that, granted, it's a freak accident, right? Somebody pulled out. It doesn't matter. I could have prevented it had I just followed the rules and put it in the back seat like I'm supposed to. And that's not a consequence I'm willing to live with. Because regardless of what anybody would say about how it isn't your fault, yeah, it was. Because I chose to let her in the front seat knowing damn good and well it wasn't appropriate for her to do so. And that would be a potential consequence of my actions. So that's why I try to get my kids to understand, your accountability. There are consequences. And if you're not cool with that worst case scenario, then you might want to rethink what you're about to do. Because that worst case scenario could happen and you have nobody to blame but you. You could try to blame the world, but it's not the world's fault. You chose to go against what people are telling you. You chose to go against the good advice. You chose to go against the laws that are in place to do something. Fine, it's your right to do so. But just understand that could potentially come with some really bad consequences. And if it does, you can't then change it to be everybody else's decision and not yours. You chose to do that. And I know that was an extreme example, but my point is, that's what I'm trying to teach my kids, and that's what I try to do to everybody else I come in contact with, and that's how I try to do my own life. And that is, we gotta understand that we're not victims, man. Like, oftentimes, the decisions that we make, sometimes they just have really shitty consequences, man. And you can't go into it thinking YOLO, you know what I mean? Like, and if it happens, great. Then you get to tell that story, and you're like, yeah. But then if it happens bad, well, somebody else. No, that was yours too. You got to own that bad consequence. And if you don't want to own the bad consequence, then think before you act. Before you get ready to do what you're getting ready to do, think about it. And if you're not cool with that negative, that's the other lesson that my mom taught me that I still to this day can hear her. It's been 40 years, I still hear her telling me, think before you act. And that was probably one of the best things she's ever taught me, because I do think about the consequences. I do think about, hey, if I do this, what could happen? like pros and cons. And if I'm not cool with the cons, then I'm probably not going to do that. If I do it anyways, then I got to be man enough to say, I made the decision. I need to live with these consequences that I brought on myself. So do you. Go for it, man.
Well, it reminds me of when I was counseling people every day, when I had my treatment center, my outpatient program, and doing all that. I remember one of the most controversial things that I would say in a group session or individual session was when people would use the word mistake, and I said, I don't believe in mistakes. And they'd be like, well, what do you mean? Of course it was a mistake. I didn't intend to do it. And I said, no, you didn't intend for that consequence. I said, but you intended to
Exactly.
do what you did. I said,
Exactly.
so you were unlucky, you were unfortunate. I said, but the action that you did is only considered a mistake afterwards if it didn't successfully get through. And so it's like when I was a kid and I would trip somebody or play a prank on somebody, and they would just fall and they would hurt themselves, but it wouldn't be that bad, and it's funny.
Right.
But when they would hurt themselves to the point where like blood came out, even though I really do want to laugh a little bit, there's a part of me that goes, ooh, I got to make sure you're okay first. Then I was like
Sure.
scared for a second. Then when you see they're okay, then you laugh about it. Go, dude, you okay, bro?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that conversation happens to all of us. So, but my actions is no different. I did the same action.
Yep.
It's just it was a different outcome. And so whenever it turned out okay, it's a funny story. I mean, how many funny stories do we have about things that we did as young people? I mean,
Yeah.
I have so many great stories, but it's only because I lived through them. But the stories that aren't so great are my unfortunate peers that didn't make it through
Yeah.
okay. Then it's not so funny anymore. Then it's kind of sad, man, that it happened to them like that.
Yeah.
And then most of the time, people really suffered negative results for stuff that was minor or stuff that we all did a million times. And man, we got
Yeah.
away with it, and that guy didn't. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and we all have those stories. So I'm not even going to get into those. But the point is that there are no such thing as mistakes, people. There's just a decision that you made. You have a committee in your head that your best thinking said that was the one we're going to go with. That
Yep.
committee inside your head sat down in that split nanosecond, and all the committee shared their opinion. And then the best decision that came out of that committee was to go ahead and do that. Take
Yep.
that risk. And then it didn't work out right. So now you call it a mistake, or now you feel unfortunate, or now you say that shouldn't have happened to me. It wasn't supposed to work out that way. No. We unfold the paper. We don't know what's going to happen when we unfold the paper. We don't know what it's going to reveal. We never know what the packages are going to reveal. That's why you hear people say that every day is like a gift and a present. Yeah, but we don't know
Yeah.
what's inside it. We like to predict. Oh, it feels like it's shoes. You ever do that with Christmas presents, Trent? You kind of shake. My dad's real good at it, by the way. He can shake it and go, "Oh, I know what this is," and he always knows. He always knows what it is. But we always give him the same 5 things, so of course he knows what it is. You know what I mean? But the point is that people, they shake their gifts and they go, "Oh, I know what this is. Oh, this is a book. This is a video game. This is a shirt. Whatever." I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes I can predict it. Sometimes I can't. But I'm not gonna be one of those people that walk around and says I know exactly how this is gonna turn out, because I do not. I have learned way too much, and that's the wisdom. The wisdom
Yes.
that you get with age. The wisdom is that I do not know how this is gonna turn out. Man, I've seen things that have the 99% chance of probability of working out not work out, and
Yes.
I've seen things that have the 1% chance of probability not working out, but it did work. It just happens.
Yeah.
Math is math, but there is no, as long as there is a percentile. Some of us grab onto that percentile and think that we're the Michael Jordan of that activity, and some people look at that percentile and said it is not worth the risk. That is up to you. That is
Yes.
completely up to you. What decisions are you going to make today that you didn't correctly weigh the negative outcomes or the positive outcomes? You have an opportunity right now to sit down and weigh that before you make certain decisions today. There's a lot of decisions you're going to make today. Now, some are going to be very instinctual,
Yep.
and some are unfortunately too instinctual by past behavior, and you're not putting enough thought into it. Where really you might want to sit down, you'll benefit from just sitting back and just mapping it out just a little bit better, discussing it with somebody who maybe is not such a yes person, somebody that's going to challenge that thinking a little bit better. But you know darn well why you don't do that a lot. And the reason we don't do that a lot typically is because we don't want to hear no. I don't want to hear that I shouldn't do it,
Yeah.
can't do it, and all that other stuff. But who knows? That may motivate you to commit to the trick. That's another thing we say on this show. Commit to the trick. If you're going to do a trick, in any kind of sport, any kind of X game type, thing, whether it be a skateboard, whether it be a bicycle, motorcycle, car, whatever. You got to commit to the trick. If you don't commit to it, and you got just a little bit of fear, a little bit of doubt, you're not gonna do it. It's not gonna work. You got to
Yeah.
commit to it. So get your game face on. But prior to getting your game face on, do your research, get your game face on, and commit to it. And then take responsibility for the outcome regardless. If it's a good outcome, good for you. You did it. Nobody else did it. You did it. There was a lot of people that helped you. So thank all the people that helped put that situation in place. But you were the final determining factor. But same thing with failure. If it doesn't work out, you did it. None of those other people did it. And if you say, well, I got caught because John ratted us all out. No, you were the one that did the do with John. So that's your fault. You did a crime with John, and then you blame John. Everybody out there playing cops and robbers, but they forget the name of the game. Cops and robbers is, if you're the robber, you're going to eventually lose. You're going to get caught. That's part of the deal. Like when you said that, if people are mad at the cop for getting them a ticket, if
Yeah.
you're incarcerated or in trouble with the law and you committed a crime and you're mad at them for catching you, the hell are you mad about? How many crimes did you get away with that they didn't get you? You're probably on the winning side of that percentage. You know what I mean? You just did one too many. That's it. That's just the way the ball bounces. G, as Flavor Flav said. Remember that?
Yeah, I agree. And I think that we have to, as adults, we have to do a better job of living that way, so we
Yeah.
provide a better
Yeah.
example for our kids. Because too many of our
Right.
kids are growing up with this idea that consequences don't matter. That
Yeah.
they'll be able to blame somebody else, and there'll be no my 60-year-old said something to me the other day that just blew me away, and made
Yeah.
me question, like, all right, man, like I need to do a better job of teaching some lessons here. We were talking about
Uh-oh.
grades and stuff, and one of the things that she said was, because she kept saying how grades didn't really matter, and it's not a big deal and all sort of stuff. I kept asking, I was like, yeah, they are. But throughout the conversation, she made a statement that has stuck with me since that happened, and it's in the forefront of my mind whenever I talk to her now. And that is, she said, the world is set up for you to succeed. And I said, wow, like no, it's not. Like, you have to work. You can't just sit back
Mm-mm.
and opportunities just gonna come knocking on your door and it's like, all right, it's your time, it's your number, let's go.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. That
Right.
is the image that and it's not. I don't even blame her. I blame us. We, as a
Yeah.
collective, as adults, our behavior, our lack of follow through, our lack of responsibility, our lack
Right.
of accountability, our lack of
Right.
consequences is showing, not telling, is showing the new generations that it's all going to be fine. You don't really have to do anything. Just, it's going to happen. And that's just not the truth, people. If you're watching this, something
Yeah.
tells me that's the truth. And I'm not trying to say doom and gloom, no, but there's a difference between surviving and thriving. Yeah, survival, yeah, it's relatively easy to do in today's world, sure. But who the hell wants to just survive? And that's not what she was meaning either. She was talking about thriving. She was talking about living and having a great life and having money to pay your bills and living. That stuff doesn't just happen. It's not set up for us. And that's the thing that I think that we got to do a better job collectively. We got to do a better job at holding ourselves and other people accountable for our decision making. If I'm upset, I got to not get upset anymore. It's not your job to change your thought process, right? We see a lot of that happen right now in the political world. We got to stop this idea that it's always somebody else's fault and I'm infallible and everything, I'm doing everything right all the time. And if it didn't work out, it's because stop. Own it.
Yeah.
Own your consequences, man. Own it. Deal with it. And I'm not saying that you should never make bad decisions. We all do. It's just like he
Yeah.
said. Sometimes they're
Part of
worth
it.
it. The decisions that I made when I was younger, I don't regret. I'm thankful I got real lucky with a lot of them, but I would never make them now, right? Like, perfect example. I don't know how to behave on a sport bike. Anybody who's known me for the last 20 years will know I don't know how to act on a sport bike, man. I'm talking wheelies, I'm talking three digits, bad, right? How I'm alive? No clue. I should be dead right now, but I'm not. And it's not because I'm so awesome. I'm lucky, is what that is. It's not skill, it's luck, right? But now people ask me all the time, oh, I've got tattoos. Half my tattoos are from my motorcycle stunt days. But people ask me now, hey, would you ever get another bike? My answer is no. I wouldn't go out and get a sport bike today, right? Why? Because I don't want to die. I don't want something horrible to
You
happen
know,
to me and leave my wife and my kids. Go ahead.
you do notice that you said sport bike though, brother.
I did say sport bike. I didn't say no bike.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. I heard
but
that. You know, you said here's how you said it. Would I go out and get another bike today? No, I would not go out and get another sport bike. That's how
correct.
you said it. I
Correct.
heard the clause. There's a
Absolutely.
clause, and I like that
But
clause.
but here's another clause, and this is the clause that I've had with my own kids because they're talking about bikes. I would not own any sort of motorcycle here in Orlando. Period. Now, if I were to move away and go to like another state that's a lot
Yeah,
less,
I agree with
you
that.
know,
I
densely
agree.
populated, I still wouldn't get a sport bike, but I might get like a touring bike, something that I could cruise on and chill and
Yeah,
experience riding a motorcycle again. But here in Orlando, with
yeah,
all that, no, I wouldn't have one at all. And it's because, as you said, as I've gotten older and wiser, I've seen too many situations where things just went really bad really quick. And I'm aware that there's consequences to my behaviors. So I don't want to do a behavior that's going to give me a poor consequence if the risk isn't worth it. And being
exactly.
paralyzed or losing my life and leaving my children and my wife without a husband and a father is just not worth it to me. So I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
That's what we got to get better at. We got to get collectively better at teaching our kids and teaching our fellow friends and everything else that there are absolutely consequences to our behavior. And sometimes it's going to be good, sometimes it's not going to be good. Own them both, pick yourself up, move on, make better decisions. You got anything else you want to add
Well,
before we finish it?
yeah. Here's where we got to get better. We got to get to the next show. We got a sports show coming up, and what we do have to do, Trinity. I think this is a part two for opportunity and outcomes show. So I think we need to have a part two where we discuss opportunity and outcomes and the differences of those things. You word it the way you need to word it, but I think we need to have another one. My final words is just saying, look, I don't want to hear about your mistakes. If your definition of mistake is that you didn't get what you wanted, then okay, we've all had them. But I just don't believe in the word mistakes. I believe it. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it succeeds, sometimes it fails. But I did what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it. And if it didn't work out, it wasn't a mistake. It was just a failure. A failure, I can deal with that word. I'm not afraid of that word. I don't think that word is a bad word. I think it is. It is what it is. I have successes too. So I'm not going to sit there and beat myself up over a failure. But I'm also not going to blame anyone for my consequences. I know that there's a lot of consequences that I have to take responsibility for. Of course, there's some things that are just innate. They're just natural. They're just there. But I still have to accept them because they're not changing. And anything that can be changed, I have to be willing to change if I want a different outcome. And that's my focus of the day, and that's it. And I'm ready to go to the sports show after you finish.
Right on. I'll make this one relatively quick, man, because I think we've already said what we needed to say. But I will remind everybody that, yes, we are getting ready to, if you're watching this live on facebook.com/WPSN99, we're going to finish this particular broadcast and start a second one. And that will be the morning after with Dope and Dharma. That's our sports show. Got a lot to talk about with sports, but if all you're interested in is the spiritual component of things, then this is where we part ways for today. Somebody's coming in. They're gonna have to hold on for a minute. Anyways, so real quick, I make it short and sweet. Actions have consequences. Behaviors have consequences. Doesn't matter if you like them or not. Some are gonna be good. Some are gonna be not so good. Just own them. Pick yourself up and move on, man. Stop being a victim. Stop blaming everybody. But understand that everything you do has a direct outcome, whether you like it or not. That's all I got. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys like, share, follow, all those other things. In the meantime, now that you know better, do better. Peace. Are you still here? What are you doing? I told you, go do better.